Okay, so good afternoon, guys. So welcome to another class. And in the last class, we talked about state management system. Yeah, state management in Flutter, right? And yeah, over time, we've been, kind of looking at some concepts. I've been able to build a few stuff. So yeah, so we're going to take it up a notch. So we're going to be building an application, right? I just named it Quiztail, right? So it's a quiz application. So in the process of building this, we're going to still learn a lot about Flutter. We're going to learn how to, do designs proper, how to work with state management, the GetX state management package. Right. And yeah, so there's going to have a fully functional application that you can, share with people. They can play, and of course, it can actually add to your portfolio. Maybe you just need to do one or two touches, give it an icon, choose your own color. You can even go as far as adding some extra functionalities, and it becomes part of your portfolio. So yeah, so that's basically what we're going to be building. And then so for today, and of course, if we still have more time, but we'll do some other stuff. But for today, we're going to, get to set up our project. Part of the project setup will be setting up dependencies, we'll set up our project structure, we'll set up some assets, constants, utils, and theme, and some other things that we're going to actually need. So this is just more like a setting up project. So you will learn, how to set up your project properly, right? And of course, as time goes on, right, we're going to be improving on the application, making sure we are, kind of making use of best practices, right? So that's basically that. We'll try to cover this today. If we don't have, if we have more time, we'll look into doing some extra stuff. Or if we do not, then we'll just round it up. But so this is something you can actually do and follow with me, right? As we are building, right? You can even start, you know, adding your own flair, right? I'm going to choose my own color. You can decide to choose your own color, right? And just play around, allow yourself to, yeah, do it the way you would actually want. But of course, in the end, the functionality, is going to be almost the same. You can also add your own functionality. So yes, so let's dive right into it. So let me bring up my um yeah, let me bring up my VS Code quickly. Okay, so let me just arrange this, such that it looks um okay. Yeah, so we can, so this is just an empty project, like a default project, right? Just created it. So as you know, we're starting from scratch. So I don't want to set up anything, so that you see how we set everything up. So this is just that. So let's start, right? So setting up our project. So from project structure, and then let's see what we can do. So first of all, we are going to be using GetX, right? So the very first thing we need to do is to set up the dependency, right? From the word dependency, it means that your project needs this to actually what function, right? To actually give you this functionality. So you need a dependency. So to make use of the GetX, we are going to add the um, GetX dependency, right? So yeah, okay, sorry, just a second. Let me share this again. Okay. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen again in about 2 seconds or three. Okay, okay. So so in setting up our dependencies and a few other things, so we'll go to our popspec.yaml file, right? Where we have our name, description, and the like. So Now, there are, if you notice, we have dependencies here and you have dev dependencies. So dependencies, like I said, it's just what it does is that it specifies other packages that your package needs in order to actually work, right? And then there are some commands here that you can run on your terminal to automatically upgrade them, like Flutter, pop, upgrade major versions, and or the likes. So our dependencies, we'll add them here, dependencies that our application needs to work. But we also have dev dependencies. So these are just dependencies you need, just from a development standpoint. You don't put it, you don't use these dependencies on live site, like on the live when you're pushing your application to Play Store. You don't need it. For example, we have a Flutter test, right? So this is a dev dependency. You don't actually need it in the live application because you don't need to be running tests. The user is already using it, right? So, but we use it in the dev, right, to test before we push it to the live site. So that's that. So we need the GetX dependency. So I'm just going to say GetX. Now, you can actually go to one of the things about packages, you can go to the website to get the name of the current version of that package. So let me just show you how we can do that. So I can just go to my browser, right? Let me just bring that here and just search for GetX, right? And then you can see in pub.dev. So here you can actually find packages, every package you need. So this is the GetX state manager, right? You can actually check this out, and it kind of shows you, a lot that you can actually get out of GetX, right? So versions, I'll go to versions. I'll know the current version. So the current version, you can always see it here, but you can still search to. So the current version is 4.6.6. So means that we need to get this, right? So let me just minimize that. So I'm going to come here and add, do I get, yes, this 4.6.6. Okay, so we need to add a bit of space here. So this is getX, right? So we need this dependency. So once you add it, you have to wait you have to wait for some time for it to, kind of get that package. So Flutter pop.get is going to run and it's going to download that package for you, right? And whatever package that you're going to need. So that's one major package we need, right? Okay, so any other thing, we'll probably just get it later on, right? Any other package we need, we'll get it later on. So that's, let me not add everything. If we need another one, I'll go there, I'll add it. So, it kind of just, keeps ringing in your head. Okay. So that's just how you add a dependency. Okay. That's how you add a dependency. So now talking about the project structure, right? So first of all, let me come here. Now, one of the things you're going to try to do whenever you're building your application is try to, reduce the number of lines of code and a lot of what we call separation of concern, right? Componentization, different word for it actually. Dry, do not repeat yourself, and the like. So you can see this class is just too long. There's a lot of things here. We basically have two classes here. We have the homepage class, which is a stateful widget. We also have my app, which is a stateless widget, and then we also have this main function running here, right? But we kind of don't want that. We kind of need to separate things, right? So I'm going to leave my app here, but you can see my app, which this stateless widget, it has a home of this home page. So I'm going to just I'll just take this out, right? Let me just delete this. Okay. So of course, this is going to shout, right? Because it needs, we need to pass in a widget here. Okay. So let me just create a widget before I, you know, solve that. So homepage or Dart. Okay. So STL. So to a short form to create a stateless widget. I hope my laptop is not going to drag a bit. Okay. Stateless widget. So home page. Okay, so with this, let me just return a scaffold, right? So that we have a white screen and not something blank. Okay, so I'll just return this scaffold for now. So we add const. Okay, so we don't have my home page. What we have is just home page. So home page, and then import that. Okay, so okay, so that's that. So when I just save this and then run, right? You can see we have this white canvas. So what does that mean? Now, the main here is calling what my app, and my app is a stateless widget, right? Which returns a material app, but it gives us this homepage, and our homepage just has a scaffold. Um, so let's do some more setup, right? Now we are using GetX, okay? So the interesting about GetX, so we're going to change this. So, but before then, let me just take out this, right? For now, take this out. I hope I'm not okay. Okay, good. So, instead of returning a material app, since we're using GetX, I'm going to return a get material app. Get material what app. So of course it's going to show this because we have not imported so we need to import the getx, the get this in rich. Okay, so let's check our dependency. So because this depends on getx, it does not exist, so version solving failed, so that means it was not able to get it. So we need to go back to our pubspec.yaml and check this. Okay, sorry, that should be get and not getx. So sorry, the dependency name is get and not getx. Okay, so yeah, so we'll have to hold on. Let's see. Flutter pub is running, resolving dependencies, downloading packages, changed one dependency. So yeah, so yeah, I think we're good. We are good now. So with this, I should be able to import. So yeah, so you can see import library, get navigation, but this is not what we're looking for. What we want to import is the second one, which is package colon get slash get dot dart. Okay, so once we do that, we are good to go. I'm just going to save that just to be sure that we do not have any error, right? Of which we don't have. So we return the get material app. So let me take out all these comments. We just want to make things look clean. Now we don't actually need a stateful widget, right? So we'll just leave it as a stateless widget, right? Now I can also decide to clear this out and then just take out this const. So, yeah. So let's just make sure that everything, so we have so returning this, so get material app and the likes. Okay, but let's see. Maybe I'll just leave that actually, so that we just have a constant. Maybe I'll just leave that, but I don't think I want to. So, but for now, let's just leave that. So we have our get material app. So let's remove our debug show check banner, right? Which is this debug logo here. So I'm going to say false, right? And just save that. Okay, and that goes out. So we are good there, right? So the title, well, let's just, call it what it is, quiz tail, right? Okay, and then that's that. Okay, so yeah, we're looking all good, right? So let's just keep this way for now. All right, so we're good here. Anything, let's just make things look a bit more. So in our homepage, yeah, we have just the scaffold. So let's just add an app bar. For now, I'll take it out later, right? Just to be sure that everything is okay. So let's take out this const. Yeah, I think that's the issue. So our app bar has a title. So we're going to call it. So I'm going to show you how to do something, right? So that we don't our app bar returns a widget. So we have to give it a text widget, right? So text quiz tail, right? And then we'll use a const to improve performance. So let me just save that, Control S. Okay, so we have our quiz tail here. Okay, so that's fine. That's okay. Okay, so that's just some initial setup. So now let's now do some project setting, right? Now, if you're going to have images and the likes, of course, we'll need assets. I don't know if I have any image. So, but let me show you guys what we're going to be building. I kind of had to just design this quickly yesterday. So this is basically what we're going to be building. Confirm you can see that maybe on the chat. Just confirm you can see this. So this is what we're going to be building, right? There will be some other screens in between based on states, right? Based on each question, we're getting a wrong question and that. So I just designed something simple, right? You can update the design and add anything you want to add, but this is just how I want it to be, just something simple. Functionality and the like, we'll still get to build more stuff as we go. Okay, so I'm going to be looking at this, when we start designing, just to for reference sake. But let's set up our project. Now, if you're going to need images, right? If you're going to make use of images, of course, we need to create an asset folder. And the assets folder is going to be created in the top level here. So it's a top level folder. So it's not inside of any folder, but that's what I mean by top level. So I'm just going to click out here, like click here, because if you're clicked on any of this and you want to create a folder or a file, it will create it inside. But because I want to create it top level, right, I'm going to just click here, right, and then I'm going to either click on this icon or just right click here and say new folder, right, and then I'll call assets. Okay, and then of course that's for assets. Maybe whatever, if I have an image, I could just create another folder rather, images, right? And then if you have icons inside the assets folder, you just hover on it, make sure you're selected, and I could say icons. Okay, so that's part of your setup. Let's see, what else can we set up again from our slide? We talked about assets. So there are things like constants that you may actually need. Constants are things that will not change. So I can just decide to, so here I'm going to go into my lib file, and then I'm going to create, constants folder. Now inside the constants, right, I'm going to create a file, and I'll call it constants.dart. So there you can put in a lot of things here, right? A lot of things. You can put in a lot of things. For example, I could create a color that I want to use all through, right? So looking at this image, so I think I'll need to kind of check what color I used on the Figma. I think I wrote that down somewhere, but let me just show you. You can create a constant color that you're going to reuse, right? I could just say const primary color, for example. And then I could say colors dot blue. Now I can't see these colors because I need to import the material. So I'm going to say package Flutter, right, and then material.darts. Yeah, so this now becomes a constant. You can add anything here. So this now becomes a constant and you can call it from anywhere. And that's the essence of it. You can call it. So you don't have to, always say colors.blue, colors.blue, colors.blue in like 10 files. Now, if for some reason you need to change blue to red, you now have to go to 10 files to change that thing. But when you create a constant, and you just need to, and you have used it 10 places, all you just need to do is change it to red here, and it reflects everywhere, right? So there are other things you can put text, right? In fact, I could just have for example, right? Still here, but I can just try to separate it and say text, I could just say text dot dart rather, not darts. There's no S. Sorry about that. And then the same thing. So let me just, just put this, for I don't think we need it, but okay. So I could just say const app name, right? Maybe I'll just use this. And then I could say quiz fail, right? So I actually don't need this because I'm not calling any, right? So now with this, I've stored this here. So where did we have this? Okay, so do you think I can just say app name and then we're fine? So when I save this, you can see it still stays here, right? So what happens is you can create every string that you will need, you can just create them as constants. You can just save them. Now, the essence is if for any reason you need to make a change, especially if that string appears, more than once, right? More than once. If it appears more than once, right? Just create a constant so that when you want to make changes, you just go to one place to make that change and it changes across board, right? So that's something to take note of, right? Um, yeah, so that's that. You can create as much as you want, just dependent on, what. So those are kind of like your constants. Now, so we are using GetX, right? And we, said something, we talked about GetX and everything. So we'll still talk more about it and things we need. So another thing is, I talked to you about creating widgets, right? Reusable what? Widgets that you're going to make use of, not more than once, right? You don't have to always create it. So you can create a file here, folder rather, called what? Widgets, or you could call them components. Okay, you could call them components or you could call them what? Widgets. So I'm just going to create that folder. Remember, we're setting up the what? Project what? Structure. Okay, so this is just a mini application. It's not really that big. Okay, so now you can create a folder for your screens, right? This is also one. Now I'm going to create another one for what I call utils. So utils is what I'm going to have here are, certain helper functions, right? Certain helper functions. A typical example, which I'll show you guys, is when you were doing your, what's it called? Um, email validation, right? So your email validation could be a helper function. You could just have a function that does that and returns, either a true or a false if it is valid or not. And then that function, you can reuse it whenever you want to validate. You can have a helper function that validates that an input field is empty or not. You understand? And you do it once without ever having to, actually do it again, right? Um, so yeah, so those are certain things that we are going to also do. So let's see what else, what other helper function or whatever, what other project stuff can we do now? You can also set up your project structure based on the understanding of what you're building. So we are building a quiz application. So we're going to need certain things like a model. Now we are using GetX, so we are going to need to have a folder for controllers, right? For your controllers. We'll talk about controllers, right? And of course, you've used it based on, what's it called? A text input field to get, a value from an input field. Okay, but the controllers now I'm talking of is with respect to what GetX, right? And controllers is going to be a class, your controller class, and that's where your logic is going to be. because one of the things you're going to learn and you're going to be doing in your when you're building your applications is your logic should not be in your UI, it should be in a separate class, and that's going to be your controller class, right? So we will have those classes. So I could just have a folder called controller. Okay, so now one of the things we'll do is I will build upon this. In fact, I want to show you guys like the basic level, and then I'll show you how we can optimize and what we do when we want to optimize, right? So that's also part of your learning, right? Um, so back to, let's see if we can just do a few more things. So back to our constants, we had constants. So this was for color, right? So let's rename this to color or colors, right? So this constant is for colors. This one is for texts, right? Now, interestingly, you can also have constants for sizes, right? You can have constants for sizes so that you don't always have to, what's it called? You don't always have to hard code and say, okay, this should be 15.0, this should be 12.0. And then maybe when you need to make changes, the same thing, you will now go to like 5 different files to start increasing 14 to 16. So you can also have constants for sizes. Okay, no, that shouldn't be a folder. That should be a class. So I could just say sizes.dart. So I'm going to show you 2 ways we can do things, right? Now, you can notice that in the text here, we just gave a constant and we're able to call it directly, right? Another way you can do it is by creating a class. For these sizes, I could say class app sizes, the sizes the app that I'll be using the application, right? And that's that. So when I want to use it, I'll just do app sizes dots. So these are 2 ways, okay? So let's say I want to create sizes for padding and margin. So I will now I'll say something like static const double, because your sizes should be in double. Let me say, well, it's padding, so I could just say X that is extra small and assign 4.0. So this is extra small, right? This is extra small. I could just duplicate this. So this should, let's say this is now small, SM, and then let's say 8. I could do for, let's say, medium, which is MD, right? And I could say 16, you understand? Or you can even say, if in case you need 10, I can say medium small. You see, it's your naming convention. And then actual medium should be 16. So it all depends on your sizes. Okay, someone is asking what of font family. We'll get there, right? We'll get there. So that's actually about app sizes, right? So you can add sizes for what's it called? Icons. You can add sizes for font sizes also, right? Maybe you want to add the points where your font size should be what's it called? 16. So let me just duplicate this. So let's assume this is for what? Font sizes. Okay, so I could just call this a font size SM. That's font size small. I could just say, okay, 14 or maybe 12, right? And then font size M, let's say MS or MD, right? Medium, let's say 14, or let's do MS. And then font size MD, medium, 16, and then you can increase like that, right? You can decide to do font size LG for large, right? And then, you can decide, okay, fine, large should be 18. Just play around. Depends on what you want to actually, what you can do for button sizes and the like. Now, but the one I want to show you, one last one I'll just show you, is for spacing, right? So that the essence of this, right, you can have equal and very neat spacing. So let me say default spacing between sections, right? So I could say that my default space. So the word default is a keyword. That's why it was shouting. So I could say my default space should be 24. So no matter the elements, the default spacing there should be what 24. Okay. I can say that I want the space between, let me use short forms, please. The space between items, right? Maybe text or whatever, image and everything should be 16, right? You can even break this down. You can increase, you can do for 14, but you call it whatever suits you. I can say, for example, I can say space between input fields, right? For those of you that are doing forms, could also be 16. You understand? It can be now. You will now ask yourself, since I have 16 here, why don't I just leave it and maybe during my input field I just use this one? Well, like I said, everything is about you considering your application. Input fields are input fields, items are items, right? In as much as an input field is an item, but let's say you're designing your home screen and you have an image here, a text here, and you're using space between items. If you want to make changes in your input field now, so maybe increase, or maybe you want to actually now increase the space between items, you can't come here. You understand? You can't come here. And if you increase it from here, you have also increased it somewhere else. So it's just good to separate things, even if they might have the same value. The last one I could just say space between sections, right? Sections, and that one could be a very big space. So I could say maybe 32. Okay, so these are basic setups that you can just have, right? And you get to reuse them. Okay, so yeah, so that's another thing, right? You can also do is to, because when you import your images, right? Your images are being read as strings, right? Your images are being read as strings. So for example, let me just bring in an image here. What's the size of this? Okay, 51 KB. So I just want to drag an image down to this place. So this is the image I have put in here, right? It's under this. Now, so very important, rename this before you even put it. So, this is not a very good naming convention, the spacing and everything. So I'm just going to say project underscore phase. So this is project underscore phase dot png. That's the name. And that's what is Flutter is going to use to, reference that. So you could have a constant for images. So I'll call it image. Let's say images dot dart, right? Images dot what dart. And then same thing, I could just, for this one, I could say app images. And you can add both for logos, whatever, right? So what you're going to add here is the path, right? Is the path to it, so that you don't always have to have it everywhere. So let's say images. You can call it anything. You can have for logos, you can have sections for icons and all that. Well, let me just call it app images. So okay. So it's a string, right? So I'm going to call this let me just call it project phase. It's very important to name things. So let me use this. Okay. So now what we are going to add is the path. And what is the path? Where this image is actually located, right? So from convention, we start from assets. So it's in assets, and on that assets is in images, and then other images you have it. So what we have here is assets dash images, and then the name of the image, which is project underscore phase. And you must put the extension. Very, very important. Else it won't be able to reference it. So you can have as much, as your application makes use of. Okay. So, well, based on our time, I think we'll just do project setup today because I want you guys to understand the importance, and these things will help you to build your applications faster. Okay. So, there are some other setups that we can have. I talked about validators, right? I talked about validators. Um, so I'm going to put everything in utils. So utils is short for utilities, right? So under utils, let me have a folder, or I could just have a class, right? Let me have a folder because there are some other things that can, come into utils. In fact, I'm going to just do some reformatting now. So let me say validators. And then inside of validators, I'm going to have validators.dart. Okay. Now, let me bring this constant inside utils. I hope, okay. Are you sure you want to move constants into utils? Yes. So let's move it. Yes, make the refactoring. Okay, good. So under utils, we have constants and then we have validators. So validators is going to just be a class that will hold any form of validation that our application may need, right? Now, one very important validation is that we want to validate if a text is empty. And you've done that already. You're able to do some logic, write some code. But now, if we have about 20 input fields, right? Do we have to be writing the function or copying and pasting the function everywhere, right? The full function? No, we write it one place and then reuse it. Okay. So, okay, so let's just do that. So I'm just going to have, so it's going to return, it's going to be a string function to return a string. So I'm going to say, I'm going to call this function validate empty text, right? And it's going to take a okay, it's going to take a string which could be nullable, right? Meaning that it's possible that it's empty, and the string, let's say, call it field name. Remember, we're trying to build something that is going to be reusable, right? It's going to be reusable. So string field name, and then a value also of type string. Okay, so what are we doing? Well, basically what we're going to do just to check for empty text, we're going to say if the value, right, is null, or this is the operator, or the value, dot is empty, right? What do we want to do? We want to return a message. So we're going to return a message, okay? That's why, and then our message is just going to be, where's my, sorry, have I changed my input field? Okay, inputs, listen, okay. So field name is required, right? Which is the name of that field. So in this case, it could say, email is required, right? That's the field name. First name is required. That's the field name, and the likes, okay? So if, of course, if that's not the case, we will return null. And then that is that. So this gives us a validator to check if we're going to make use of it. So don't worry, in case you're asking, okay, how do we use it? We will make use of it. We are just doing some basic setup that we will actually need. Now, even for the email, right? For the email, the same thing, just like what you have done, but let's now create it as a it's going to return a string also. We'll say to check a valid email, right? So I'm going to say string. So it takes a value. So you're going to pass in something, and then it will check if it is a valid email. So what do we do here? We're going to first of all check if it is empty, right? We're going to check if it's empty, so I can just copy this. Okay, so it's here we can just say email, right? So email is what's required. Okay, so if that's not the case, so this is the first check. If the value is null and it is empty, I can do another else if, but let's just see. So first of all, let's get our email expression, our regular expression for email, right? So that's a reg expression. So let me just copy this because of course I can't start cramming this at this point. So these are regular expression, right? So check, okay? So we're going to make use of this, and then I'm going to say if um email, so we're going to check our email expression dots. We'll use the code has match and then pass in the value, right? So this is going to return a boolean. So it's going to check if it has a what match. So what we're going to do is this. If it does not have a match, like so, if it gives us, because of course this should return true, but if it gives us false, right, we will return a string that says invalid email address, right? So else we just return no. So this gives us what? Another helper what function, another validator, right? To check, right? You can also do for password. Well, let me just do, I think password will be the last one. I'll give you guys a task to add some other validations, right? Like, validating a phone number using a regular expression, right? So let me just do for password. Okay, so let's say, okay, in the end we're returning a string. So let's validate password. Okay, and then you're passing in a string, which could be nullable, which could be null rather. So first of all, let's check if it's empty, right? If nothing was put in there. So I could just say password is required, right? So I've done that first check. So another check, if the value dot length is less than 6, right? We want to return a string, and that string is what we're going to display to the user, right? What you guys were displaying when you were doing yours. Okay, so I'll say password must be at least 6 characters long. Just kind of coin your own message. Another check. So let's check if it contains a regular expression between A to Z, right? Between A to what? Z, right? Because we need to check, and not just A to Z. Let me show you what I mean. So if value dot contains, we'll use our regex, and then the source will be, I think this, right? So we want to check if it is between A to Z. Now I'm using uppercase here because one of the thing about a strong password is that it should have, an uppercase letter. So we want to check if it has, if not, if I didn't want, if I could have just done, normal A to Z. This means you're checking for small letter, but we want to check for uppercase, right? But if this is not true, if it does not return true, right, what we want to do, okay, let's say return password must contain at least one upper case letter. I think I can just, okay, so let's see, try correcting syntax. Let's see, R, and then, okay, I didn't close this out, sorry. Okay, So we have checked for empty, we have checked if the value is less, if it's less than 6, we have checked if it has so we can check if it has a a number. So the regular expression for that, this will just be 0 to 9. Okay, so password must contain at least one number. Okay, so after all this, right, then we can now check for special character, right? So let's just do that since so for special character, we now have to pass in the special characters, right? So let me just copy this from where I have here. So I'll just paste this here. So these are the special characters. So we want to check. So if it does not contain any of these special characters, right? You say it must contain at least one special character. Okay, and then of course, if all fails, we just return a no. Okay, so I think we have added some extra. Okay, so yeah, I think this is fine. I'll let you guys know what other you can add. So we have to check the valid text. So this is something we can reuse, right? Project setup is very important. So don't think it's a waste of time. No, it is never a waste of time, right? So that's just for validation, right? Let's see if we can add one or two things, right? Okay, so this, let me just give you this, and you're going to do it in your what's it called? Um maybe when you're updating this app, right? I'm going to give that it will be part of your task. So let me just show you. So we also could set up formatters. Now, formatters is just to kind of a way to format something. So let me see. Let me just call it formatter. So same thing. So I'm just going to put one. You're going to add more. I'll just tell you which ones to add, and you figure it out. So for how can this is just to format a date, right? A date formatter, which of course it will return a string. Um, let's call it format date. And then, of course, what you should pass in is a date. You need to pass in a date, but it needs to have the type should be of date. So it's not a string, right? So you need to give it a date for it to be able to format it properly. So you're not giving it a string. So the type should be a date what type. So this is an instance in time, right? Such as you see some such as July 20, this 8:19 GMT and the likes, right? So so what we'll do, I'm just going to say date, and then first of all, I want to get the date time dot now. I need to get the current date time, and then I can now return using the date format class, right? There's a date format class, I hope. Okay, so yeah, this one actually I need a package for this. So like I said, remember, we're going to be adding packages as they come, right? I don't want to just add every package. I want to be adding it as they come. So one package we're going to need for this, I think that should be um let me see. Yeah. So we need this short for yeah, we need this package, right? So sometimes you may not have to necessarily go to we can just go I can go here now and just search for this, right? So just come here, just paste this and search so I can get the so I think yeah, this is it. So I can get the current version. So this is the current version, which is 0.19.0, right? If I come here, Yeah, you can see this, right? You can see the last time it was updated was 6 months ago. So at least that shows that the um package is being maintained, right? So you always need to check if the package is, when you probably 8 years ago, 5 years, it's possible that they have abandoned it. Fine. So I can just paste that. But another thing I usually do sometimes, I figured out, is I can just type in something, let's say something that's not even correct, right? A package number that is not correct sometimes. And what I'll just do is, I kind of just delete it and then do control space, right? And then you can see it gives me the latest, which is what we actually just copied. So this is just one hack I figured out. So you can also try it on your end, and hopefully it works for you. Okay, so yeah, so let's see, Flutter pub get resolving dependencies. Yeah, so it's gotten that. Okay, so yeah, we're good. So I'm going to go to formatter, and then let's check. Yeah, so you can see the library is now available. So once I import it, then I can now make um can now make changes, right? I can now update that. So so what we now need to do is what format, right? Because this is a date format, so we need to pass it a pattern. You can see we need to pass in a pattern, right? Which is a string, and then the locale. So what this does, it creates a new date format using the formats that you specify in the pattern. So whatever pattern you specify. So this is an example of a pattern, right? And then M/D/Y. So it will give you what Wednesday 6/27 slash what 2012, right? So it all depends on what you pass in, right? So we can pass in this. This one is already showing us what we want, but let me pass in something else. So you also know that way. So I'm going to pass in DD-MM-YYY. So this is the format, sorry. This is the format I want, right? And then I'm going to now say dot format. I'm going to call that, and then format what this date here. So what this is doing here is this, right? If there is no date that is passed, right, it's just going to either use the current date or the one that you actually want to use. That's just what this is going to do here. So either to use the current date, right, or the one that you pass in. So I'm just passing this date here, which is this one, right? And then that's that. So this is how you can format a date. So when you get a particular date, right, using the date time, you pass it to format it to any format you want, which we are using this. We want to have the day first, the month, and the year, right? So there are other things you can format. You can format a currency, you can format, phone number, right? You can format a phone number and the like. So those ones you can do that yourself and do your research to figure it out. Okay. Um, and then there's a few things we're going to do, right? Let me just do one more, which is very important, and that is what theme, right? It's part of what we're going to talk about, themes. Now, because we're going to implement dark mode and light mode. Okay, we implement dark mode and light mode. So how can we do that? Best practice, So let me just create a folder called theme, and then I'm going to have theme.dart. Okay, so I'm going to just create a class. I'll call it so I'm not going to use app theme because I think this word it already exists, right? So you have to try not to use the words that kind of clash with default classes that exist already. Okay, so I'm just going to say my app theme, or I could just, let's say, quiz theme, quiz tail theme. I know it's long, but let's just do that. Okay, right? So that's basically that. Okay, um, so let's do something. So I'm going to create a light theme of type theme data. So this theme data is from the material package, right? So I'm going to call it light theme. So I want to design a light theme. What is going to exist in my light theme? So I'm going to say theme data, and then I'm going to add some custom stuff. So there are a lot of things in our theme data, a lot of things, a lot of things, default stuff, right? So we're going to just customize it, and well, let's just we'll make some updates later, but I'm just going to add some values which we can update data. So first of all, I'm going to, if it should use material 3, I'm going to say true, right? So that we're using the current, material. This material 3 is basically just a convention, right? So we're going to use it to configure it. So it's going to use the material 3 that is available. Then so font family, right? So for font family, we can pass in any fonts, right? For now, let me just say I'll change later, and there's a reason I'm going to do some things and come back to it, right? So that you've heard or seen it like more than once. Okay. So in case you kind of forget it, it kind of comes back. Okay. So let's say poppins, right? Yeah. Okay. There are other properties like brightness, right? So brightness, I'm going to use a brightness.light because we're in light mode, right? Now, primary color, right? I can just call, remember, we created primary color, right? I can just call that. I need to put a comma here. You can see I can just call that. So you see that's the interesting thing about creating constants, right? Um, Okay, so scaffold background color, this is a scaffold like we have here. This is a scaffold, right? So I'm going to say colors, you know, colors. Of course, it should actually be white, right? It should be white, but let me use this. So this is not really pure white per se. It's just good, just so that you see it. We'll change it later, just so that you see it, but let's just implement it. Um, Now there are a lot of things. We can create a text. You can have a customized text theme, and we'll do some themes. I'll do like one or two, right? And the rest you can, we just figure it out, right? So, but let me just stop here. Okay, let's just do that. So let's create a custom theme. For this, I'm going to create a folder, because we can add in a lot of stuff here and I don't want to mix things up. So inside here, let's create a text theme, text theme.dart. So we'll come back there. Now, what do we want in our text theme, right? So we basically want to define a text theme for a light, light mode. Like, what should our text look like, and what should the color be, and the likes. There are a lot of things. So this is so let me show you. I can just say class, let's say quiz till text theme. Yeah, I know it's long, right? I think the quiz is 2. I know it's long, but just bear with me. And then let's say text theme. So let me call this light text theme, right? Okay. So of course we need to use this. We need the material package. So let me get that quickly. So here, just going to show text theme. And then we can do a lot of changes, right? You can see all these properties, we can now give it a particular value, right? So for example, in our text, they have what we call the headline, like large. So if for some reason, like for example, this quiz still, if I want to use a headline large for it, what should it look like? So this is where you can even get fonts online. I can use, I think, let's see, I probably will need the dependency, right? So I can use Google Fonts, right, to actually run this, but I'm going to need the dependency for that, right? So let's go to our pub spec. So I think you'll get used to it because I'm going back and forth. There will be times where I'll just load up my dependencies before we even start, but at least it won't be surprising to you. So Google Fonts, right? So I'm just going to choose this. Remember what I said? I don't know the current version, right? But I'm just going to choose something else, and then let's try if our method will work again. Then control space. Hope it works this time. Yes, so you can see 6.2.1, which is the latest, right? That's just a hack. Okay, so we done? Has it added that? Okay, so try upgrading your constraints on this to add this. Okay. Yeah, we added the wrong constraint. That was why. So resolving dependencies, downloading packages, and that should be done. Yeah, okay. So yeah, we're good. We're good. We're good. So let me go back to our text theme, and I should be able to import this now. Just hold on a bit, let it sync. So let's just hold on a second for it to sync. But if it doesn't, I'll probably have to, you know. So let's see. Let me just try it by typing it again to see if it will pop up. So Google Fonts. So just a second, should come up. So that's because I want to get fonts from Google for this app. Okay. So Google Fonts dot I don't think it has. I don't think it's done synchronizing. So still showing no quick fixes. So let's take this out. Except probably it has not. Okay, so yeah, Google Fonts. Okay, it's there now. So Google Fonts dot so there are a lot of fonts here. A lot of fonts. So since we said Poppins, so let's stay on Poppins. So Google Fonts dot Poppins, you understand, right? And then in there, I can now still do some other customization, right? Some other customization like the font size. So font size for my own headline large, I could say it should be 24.0, right? Color, right? For now, I can just say it should be our primary color. For now, we'll make changes later, right? And then, for we also have font weight, how heavy should the fonts be? I could say font weight dot, bold or normal, or I could just, do something like, let's say the weight of 700, right? Yeah, and then let me just close this out here, right? Add a comma here so that it's properly formatted, and then this is what we have. So you can do this is for headline this thing, right? So let's do something things to be properly, yeah, properly indented. So I could just duplicate this. There's headline large, there's headline medium, there's a lot of them, right? So I could just say there's title large, there's display. But let me just do for body, let's say body medium. So you can set up everything and choose how you would want it to be. Like for the body medium, right? Of course it shouldn't be 24. So I could say it should be 16. You understand? Of course, it shouldn't be very heavy. Very, I could say 500, and I could say colors dot let's say black, right? All these colors you can just create it. This one just default. You can create it as a constant, dependent on what you're working on, right? So this is just what we'll stop here for now, and then I'll come back to I was setting my theme light theme. So in my light theme, I want my text theme to be what did we call it? Quiz tail theme, right? If I'm not mistaken. So dot lights, sorry, dot light theme. Um, so let's see. Can we assign to a parameter? So let's check okay. So I like text theme next time. So text theme, we're good. And then okay. Yeah, so this should be fine. So let's say this is can't be assigned. Okay, because this is actually possible that it is nullable. It can be assigned to. So this actually is nullable. Well, it's we can solve that actually. So there's something I'm going to do, right? There's something I'm going to do, and I'll explain it later, right? I'm just going to do it and explain it later, or maybe I'll just explain it to you. But I don't know if you should be able to get it. So in our quiz, okay, basically I'm even calling the wrong stuff actually. What's this called? I was calling the wrong stuff, the wrong class, but there's something else I want to do. Need to import this and dot light theme. Yeah, but there's something I want to do, right? I want to, because if you notice, we are calling this guy and then we're using this class to directly get access to this, okay? No, but another way you can actually do it is to use a syntax that represents a private constructor. And basically is used to prevent the creation of instances of a class, okay? And it's actually a very useful method when we are doing what we are doing now, creating utilities, right, or constant classes, where you basically want to ensure that the class is only used for its static members, right? So this is how we're going to do it, because we don't actually want to be creating uh you know instances of a class, right? And with this method, with what we are doing here, we are basically doing that. So what we're going to do is to create a private constructor, right? We're going to create a private constructor. And how do we do that? It's fairly easy. So here, I'm just going to say quiz tail text team, right? Dot this. That's all, right? Um, yeah. So I think that should actually do it. Okay, yeah, sorry. Okay. So this is going to create a private word. So this is a private word constructor, right? And it actually prevents us from creating, instances of that class. So we can do the same thing here, right? App formatter, and you can do that for every other person. So let's just, kind of take it down a notch here. So I'm just going to duplicate this, right? And then this will now be for dark theme. So for dark theme, right? Of course, we still want it to use material, the font family, so almost everything. But of course, we have to change the colors, right? So here should be dark, right? The brightness should be dark. The primary color can actually now become white, right? Because you're looking at black, so could use, let's say, colors should be colors dot white, right? Scaffold background color, right? Of course, this should be black, right? Dark theme. And then the text theme will now use the dark. Okay. Yeah, we have not, okay. So here we have not created for dark theme. So you can just duplicate this also for um, dark text theme. But if they are going to be the same, right? Because you can still keep them. But of course, in the dark, the text, of course, should change, right? So let's say for this one, I want this one to be white. Okay, primary color, well, let's keep it at white. So I'm going to leave some different colors. You just see how it reflects, and then we can do some changes later. So dot dark theme. So yeah, this is how we create our own what theme, right? This is how we create our own what theme. So let's do the same thing here. Quiz tail theme dot underscore this, just to create a private constructor. So I'm going to save that just to be sure we have no errors, right? And we are good. Okay, so yeah, I think we're going to do in magic, basically do it project setup, right? So what else? What else? What else do we need to set up, right? Let's take a step back. So in our main, you can see we have, this that does the whole, that runs the app and calls my app, right? And then my app calls homepage rather. Now, but you can still do some, extra stuff, right? Such that we can, abstract things properly, right? So I can just move this, my class, this my app, to, the project level of this, or I can just call it app.dart, right? Yeah, and then of course import material, import homepage, uh, import get, and we're good. So the only thing that exists here is this. Take out all this. So this is just, and you're just trying to abstract things, right? You can delete this test file. Of course, hopefully we'll talk about testing actually in this cohort for beginners. I'll probably just look into it a bit. Okay, so that's for text theme, and that you can create a lot of themes, right? You can create your default theme for checkbox. You can create a default theme for a bottom sheet, a nav bar, a button, right? Even your text field, right? You can actually create a theme for your text field so that it looks a particular way. You can even do both for dark mode and light mode, right? So maybe as time goes on, we'll actually be creating some of these things and keep moving, right? So yeah, what other setup do we need to do, right? So let me just introduce you to some things, right? Some of the things, some other you know utils, right? Like I said, in the course of this application, you will learn a lot, so be ready for it. So this utils now we're creating has to do with what device. So I'll call it device.utils. Now, basically what are the sorry, util.dart. Uh dot. So I could say device utils.dart. Okay, so basically what we're going to have here is so let me say class quiz till device utils. So let's set up our quiz, so device utils. Okay, so so there are a lot of things you can put here, and these are device specific. Things like hiding the keyboard. You understand? When you want to kind of close the keyboard. When you run your application, and some phones, some applications do it. When you just open the application and there's an input field there, it automatically pops up the keyboard for you, right? You might be typing and you want to also close it after you're done typing. So you should be able to, hide the keyboard, show the keyboard, and a lot of things. So I'm just going to show us a few setup that we can actually use in our application. So for the keyboard, we're going to create a method and it's going to be void. So it's not like it's running anything, it's just doing something. And let's say hide keyboard. Now, of course, this is going to need a context, right? It's going to need a context because we don't know where exactly we're going to call it from. So we're going to need a context. Yeah, so this is basically how we hide the keyboard, right? So let's do check a few other things, right? You can also have a function that would check uh, if the application is in landscape or if it's in portrait, right? Um, in case you need to do that check. So we're going to say bool because we need to check it's a Boolean operation. So is landscape orientation. Of course, we need a build context also. We need a context as a parameter, sorry. Okay, so what we'll do is uh, we get the view inserts, and what we say, we take the view class view dot off context, and then we get the view inserts. That's just how it's done. So it checks the view padding and then return the view insert dot bottom. So when it returns, yeah, so this is basically, so this is how we get that of landscape. Now for portraits, right, we just check that is not, we return that is not equal to 0. That's all. That's basically that, right? So another thing you can do, and of course you're going to need this, especially when we get into designing, you can actually get the height of that screen, right? You can get the height of that screen. So how do we do that? Get screen height. Sorry, this should be double. Get screen height, right? So we do that by returning, we use what we call a media query, right? Media query dot off. So for here, we don't need to pass in a context, right? It's just the screen height. It does not change with respect to a particular page or whatever. It's just the screen height. And this is the interesting thing about get, right? You can use the get package to actually get the context. And then we say dot size, and then we say dot height. So we need to import get in this here. So let me see. Can't be assigned to the parameter build context. So media query. Okay, so yeah, it's actually, yeah, that solves that. So we can get the width, the screen width also. And here we'll just change this to width. Yeah, and that's actually that, right? There's a lot of things you can actually get. You can get the app bar height, or you can create a function that give the app bar height, keyboard height, a lot of things. You can actually check if the keyboard is visible. You can check for to show status bar or not, right? This is a status bar, right? You can see my mouse, this is a status bar. So you can write a function, right, that will show this status bar. Okay. You can also check. So let me even give you this one. You can check if there is internet connection. That's why this is a device, this is a device stuff. So we'll use it uses what we call a future. We'll learn about this. What we'll talk about asynchronous programming. We're not there yet, but let me just put this. So just think of, so the whole concept is sometimes you want to you want to run a task, okay, but that task, it's going to take a while and you don't want to wait, right? You don't want things to wait until that task is finished, right? That's the concept of, doing things. So synchronously, sequential, step by step. Asynchronous, it's more like, okay, things can run in parallel. So I can just run this task, right? If this one needs to take, if this one is going to take like 5 minutes, no problem, take time. while other thing runs, when you're done, you bring your value or the result, return the result, and we get to use it. Okay, but we'll learn more about that. So I can so this should be yes. Sorry, static, and then let's call the function has internet connection. So let's check. So this function is going to check if there is internet connection and it will return a boolean. So because we're using a future, we'll use what's called an async. Don't worry, which stands for asynchronous. Don't worry, we'll learn about it. And then we're going to do this in a try and catch block so that we can catch any exception. So final, we'll say results is, so whenever you're using an async, you have to use an await. Don't worry, we'll learn. Okay, don't stress your head. And then we'll say I'm going to use a class called internet address, right? Dot lookup. So we'll just look up this. So it will just try to open this URL. So this should be in a string. So to just try to look up this to open it up. That's just it, right? And then we want it to return the results, right? So return this. The result is not empty, and uh, sorry, and the results at the zero index dot the raw address dot is also not empty. Okay, so that's what we want it to return, which is going to be either true or false. And then this is just to catch exception, so don't worry your head about it. So if there's a socket exception, right, catch it based on maybe yeah, so and then return false. You just save that. Okay, so this is basically how you can check for internet connection. You can also, let me just give you this too. You can also check for the platform, static, bool, if it is iOS, you can check if it's iOS actually. iOS. You just say return platform dot is Android or is iOS, right? So this will return true or false. So it will check if that device is actually an iOS device. You can do for Android to check if the device is Android. And then I'll just say is Android, right? So right, and then okay. The last one, and this in case you want to probably open a web page from your application, you want to launch a URL, right? In case you want to launch a URL, we can actually create a helper method for that. It's going to be a void because it's not really returning anything. So I can call it launch URL. So you're going to pass in a string, which is going to be a URL, right? And then so this is going to run asynchronously, right? Because we do not want everything to be on hold while it is running. Other things in the application can still run. Okay, so I'll say if, and then we'll use our awaits, don't worry. Let me see. So I think I may need to, we'll need a package for this, right? We'll need a package for this. Let me see. I think that should be something that has to do with URL. Let me see. URL. We need a dependency. URL. Okay, URL launcher. Launcher Plus, Launcher Android, Launcher Windows. So you can see, like, you can get a URL launcher just for Android, just for iOS, just for Windows. So I'm just going to go with URL launcher. I don't want to specify. So interestingly, this gives us latest quickly. So I'll get the latest version, right, which is 6.3.0. And the reason is because I need a method called can launch URL, right? I need a method called can launch URL because that's the method. Of course, it's actually an inbuilt method, right? So let's see. I think it's done. Yeah, it got that dependency. So yeah, I can see it. So this package. So can launch URL. So can launch. Yeah, so this is can launch URL and then pass in the URL, which we already passed in here, right? And if it can launch it, right? Also just await launch it. So we first of all check if it can launch it, and then we now launch it. That's basically that. Else, if it cannot launch it, we're going to throw an error, right? And what we're going to just throw, it says, let's just say could not launch. And then I'm just going to use the URL so that it knows, right? So I could not launch maybe whatever. So let's look at this. The argument type, this can be assigned to, okay, so this uses, okay, this actually takes in a URI, but I kind of want it to take yeah, so we should use the can launch your URL string, yes, because this takes in a string. So okay, so yeah, so these are some device stuff that you can use to, use in your application, and then you can reuse it anywhere you like, anywhere at all that you like. Okay, so that's just something to take note of. We have a few minutes left, right? So let's see. Yeah, what other project stuff structure do we need? So we're going to need so I'm just going to create some of these things, right? And then but we'll get to understand it while we're going. We're using GetX, so we're going to need okay, I've created controllers. We're going to need binding, what we call bindings. I'm going to explain that. I think I did a bit, right? I'm going to need bindings, right? And then we're going to need something that will hold our data, right? Something that will hold our data. In there we'll have, a few things, right? So we have screens. So these screens will hold our pages. So let's just create that one. Now from this image, right? You can see we have 4 screens. Actually, we have 3 screens because this one is going to be reusable, right? This is going to be reusable. So we actually just have 3 screens. So a welcome screen, the game screen, and the game completed, right? So maybe we'll add more, right? I'll probably just design a few things and we can add maybe profile and the likes, okay? So in our screens, let me just add welcome screen dot dart. So this is going to be a stateless widget and call it welcome screen. Okay. So I kind of prefer to use a scaffold rather than a placeholder. And then the game screen dot dart STL game screen. So it helps us with that scaffold. And finally, so I don't know, let's call it game screen, game completed. Can we just say game status dot dart, right? Let's just use that. So stateless widgets, game status, right? And then scaffold. So yeah, this is what we have, right? So what do we have? From here, you can see we have our main, which is running this my app. And my app is a stateless widget that has a get material app that returns a home page, right? And basically this is what our home page is, right? But we don't need this home page again, right? So I'm just going to take it out, and then let's use our welcome screen, right? Okay, so yeah, our welcome screen. So if I just run this, you see we'll have just an empty listen. So let me main my app with welcome screen, right? App bar. So let me be sure that we are good. So we need to take out this const here. So let me just be sure. Let me say primary color. So let's test the use of this guy and save that. So sometimes some things when you actually save, so probably have to just do a restart. Actually, when you do most of all these setups, you need to actually do a restart, right? So that it kind of rebuilds, what you have worked on. So you can see that, our app bar, we have this, right? Okay, so let me just get to my Figma and see if I can get the color um of let me just see if I can get the particular color that I used for the application. Okay. Okay, yeah, I've gotten that. Okay. So I kind of want to make use of that, because looking at what we have here, our text color, most of button color and all that, we used that. So some of our text color also have that. So let's set up that to be our primary color, right? So instead of these are the predefined colors, right? So let me just also show you, you can actually add your own color. Now, this is the color code, but you don't just paste it, right? Hold on. Uh, you don't just paste it, right? You have to pass in, first of all, you have to pass in the more like the opacity, right? I don't know if some of us know what I mean. You have to pass in the opacity of it. So this is what I mean. So I'll say 0xff. Then you now paste in your color code. Okay. So why is it too many positional arguments? Okay, sorry, this should be color and not colors, right? So this is that. Okay. Um, so this is just the convention, right? This one, and then your actual color code, which you always see on the Figma where you're actually doing your design. So this is now the primary color. So let me just let's reload so you can see it here. This gives us this, right? So what did I want to do? So in the welcome screen, so let's give a title, which is going to be a text, right? And then so we have a string for the app name, right? So app name. So let me save that. So you can see it's actually what's black, right? So now when it comes to, so we remember we created a theme. So how can we actually use it, right? That's the million dollar question, right? So how do we actually get to use this this theme that we have in our application, right? So it's not it's a big, so let's just do that. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say theme, right? There are a lot of ways actually, sure. But let's just say what is the name of our so I'm just going to say theme dot of context dot text theme, right? Dot So let's for now, let's just use body. Let's use headline. Let's use headline large, right? Let's use headline large, and then let's save this. I'm just going to show you different ways to use this. So you can see this text is bigger. Now I can do dot apply to, it's more like a way of applying changes to the default thing, because this already has a default settings, right? So I can do dot apply to add changes. Like for example, I could say the color now should be colors dot white, right? And then I'm going to add this here. And then when I save that, you can see we now have what white. Okay. But headline large is big. Let's try title large. Um, doesn't seem like, so let's try title medium. Okay, that's small. But title, the title large give us that big stuff. Good. Okay, maybe I didn't refresh well. So yeah, that's actually, that's yeah, so I didn't actually want to go into, we don't have the time to go into the full design. In fact, from what I have here, we don't actually have this color, right? But I don't think it's a bad idea. Maybe we can just keep it, right? Can just keep it. I actually made it here white, but maybe we can just do that. So let's just add something, just one, even if it's just this text that we add, and then we round up because we have to round up this. So that's for the app bar, right? So this is scaffold, so I can now have a body, okay? And then in the body, so you're going to learn about a lot of widgets, right, as we move along, right? So, but one very first thing I want you to know is you need to first of all understand your UI before you go ahead to start working on it. And you need to be able to interpret it. For example, this welcome screen, you can see we have, you can look at, you can see that things are arranged vertically, right? So this gives you an idea. Okay, I need to arrange things like in a column, right? So, but you can see this is one, this looks different from this. So you can actually interpret and say that these are two different text widgets. Though you can actually use one, right? But we'll learn about that. But you can just assume that's okay, these are two different text widgets because they have two different styling, right? You can say, okay, this is an input field and it has a text widget on it, and then this is a button. So it's very important to interpret it so that you can properly know what widgets to use, and yeah, what widgets to actually make use of. Same thing here. You have this, first of all, you have this, you have this one, you have this, you have this shape here with all these and all that. You need to be able to interpret your design first before getting into doing anything. Don't just go and start imputing stuff. How is it laid out? Right? How is it laid out? Let me use an annotation here. So how is it laid out? You can see this is one section, right? You can see this is another section, and you can see this is. So what does this tell you? Things are arranged, in a column. So you know that you should use your column widgets. Now, if you're interpreting this as two different texts, it means that you also need a column to keep two of them, right? And then there's a spacing here. You also need to consider the spacing. Like you need to pay attention to detail, right? Looking at this also, you know that, oh, this is a text widget, this is an input widget. So that means these two also need a column. This is part of interpretation, right? They need to be placed vertically, close to each other. This is centered vertically, right? Yes, vertically. So this is centered. Is it vertically or horizontally? I think it should be. Yeah, I usually mix that up sometimes. But these are the center. You understand? So this may be you thinking, okay, maybe I need to use a center widget. You get the point, right? So that's basically what you should pay attention to. Okay. Okay, so we have a few minutes. So let me give you this one instead of designing. Let me show you a tip for some of you who will, not some of you, of course, you have to interpret designs, let me clear my annotation. You have to interpret, you'll be given a Figma board, right? One of the things that will help you to interpret designs properly is understanding the Figma board. So let me show you where I designed this. And you see this a lot, right? So you'll be presented with something like this, right? And they'll tell you implement this design. These are a few things you need to pay attention to. This is not part of what I was supposed to teach, but it's something you should know, right? I'll just do this in 5 minutes and then we'll round up. So first of all, you need to know how to export images. Assuming, I have an image here that you probably want to use. So let me just, I don't know, on Splash may take time. I could have probably just used, let me just use Iconify. Just want to get something. Okay, so yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so as I was saying, right, you need to be able to understand how Figma works and how to, get the necessary things you need. One of it is, so let me just, just put an icon somewhere. Okay, so where is it? Okay, this is it. Okay, good. So assuming, let's say we're designing, maybe this was actually an image, right? Of course, first of all, you need to know how to export an image. Now, there are several options when it comes to exporting, right? You just go down to, let me be sure that you can see my screen. Okay, so you just go down here to export, right? On design, you go to export. Now, if you're exporting PNG, I advise you go for 4x so you get a bit much clearer stuff, but always preview what you're exporting, right? Or basically, I would advise you go for SVG, right? Go for SVG. With that, you can actually even on your code, you can actually manipulate the colors. You can change this to maybe a black or that, but of course, if it's PNG or JPEG, you can't actually do that. Okay. Now, but you also need to know how to export. For example, this particular image, when you look here, you can see this hierarchy kind of thing. So this image is actually in what we call a frame. So if I export this, I'm exporting this image with the frame. But if I double click, this is the actual image. You can see it here. That means I'm highlighted on the vector. I can export just this. So you can see the difference. Here you can see it's closer. But if I'm on this, when I want to export, you can see it's a bit further. Why I'm also exporting the word frame, which you almost not want to do, right? Of course, it's dependent on the image though. Now, another thing you should look at is you have a lot of things that will help you, right? Um, one of which is the color, which you can see here. So you can know the color. You can also know the font. Of course, when you select the text, by double clicking, you can know the fonts. Now, this is not how you see it, but you see it in a more presentable way, like to just be listed. The reason I'm saying this like is because I have view access, I'm edit access rather. Okay. Another thing is, but it will still work. When you select this, you need to know the margins. Ask yourself, what's the distance between this button and this button? And when you're developing, make sure to use that. So when you click on this button, you hold your Alt key on your keyboard, right? And then just move your mouse down to the next button. It shows you the distance. So this means this is 36 pixels, right? I'm clicked on this. I'll hold Alt and move my cursor to this. You see, this is 5. I click this and then hold Alt, move down here. You can see this is 50, but of course it's 50 to the frame, not to the actual what image. Now I click this and you can see the margin from the left is 16, from the right is 16. So you have to also obey this rule. So your bottle should not be smaller, it should not be what? Bigger. Okay, this is very, very important. Pay attention to now, still on this button, you also see this here, you also see a corner radius. And this corner radius is what? 8. This curve here. So you should what? Use 8. This particular input is also 8. You should use 8. It has a stroke. What is the color of this stroke? Don't just go and look at it, say, oh, it's black. No, 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 no. Click on it and it will show you the color. This color code is 2222, 2 in 6 places. It's very, very, very important. Another thing is if I click on this, it shows you all the colors. And then, for example, the background of this shape here, right, or this frame, right, that you can see is 2E1B4E, and then there's a percentage you see that is telling you the opacity level. So it's opaque. Like if I increase this to 100, right, this is the actual what color. Okay, but I want it to be a bit transparent, right? So it means that when you're also implementing, you need to use this what? Opacity. And how do you do that? It's actually easy. So I think that's basically that. So pay attention to dimensions, colors, and that. Even the font that is used, the font size. Now you double click on it, it's also show you the font size. So you can see this using a 20, and the font is Latif. That's the font. So you don't manufacture your own fonts, right? So for that colors, let me show you. So this is the color, right? So assuming I want this is primary color. Let's say I want the one that has an opacity of 15. So I could just say dot opacity, right? If I'm not mistaken. Let me see. I think I may have to. Sorry. I think let me see opacity. So it says it can be assessed on the type color in a constant expression. So we can't use this because this is const. It cannot give us this, right? So I could just say var, right? Just a variable, and then opacity, right? With opacity, and then I'll say, okay, so you have it returns a new color that matches the color with an alpha channel replaced with the given opacity. So it ranges from 0 to what? 1. So if I want a 15%, right, I'll just say 0. I can just do this, right? 0.15, or you can do 0.1, you can do 0.2. This is 20%. This is like, 20% opacity and the like. Another way is to come to the color here. Like, let me take out this, assuming I delete this, is when you just hover on this, this shows, you come here, right, and drag this down. This is also a way of getting a lighter color, right? But just like this will change, this will give you a different color format, which is from ARGB, or you just go with this way, okay? So we're going to continue building this application in our next class, right? We'll continue building this application and we'll add more features to it. But maybe before the end of the week, I'll add a few designs to have more screens so that we learn maybe some forms, right? And profile and other things. And it will become a full-blown application you can put on your portfolio and, get people to look into it. So that will be all for our class today. Do I have any questions before we round up? Okay, so just to end this on a very good note, for the body, let me just add a for now. So we have learned Git, right? So we're going to be tracking everything we are doing, right? So you know how it is. So I'm just going to do a Git init. So we can check our Git status, right? And the like. So for now, I'm just going to push stuff, don't worry. And then Git commit. So remember, your commit message should always be something that, explains what you did. So I'm just going to say set up project structure for application or quiz tail app. Okay, yeah. Okay, so but we don't have a remote yet. So I'm just going to let me create one quickly. Let me just create one quickly. Just a second. Okay. So let me just create I don't think this is the profile I want to use. So okay. So let me just create one quickly. So quiz tail, that's the name of our application. So it's available, create repository. So I've done this before, so I'm just going to copy this and you know, let's close this, get back here. So get remote add origin, paste that. Okay, so git push, sorry, git push origin. So by default it gives us master, so I can just change the name git branch. Can I remember this stuff? So let's call it main. Yeah, okay, good. That's it. Okay, so git push origin main. Okay, so that's going to actually prompt me to sign in, right? So that's going to prompt me to sign in, which I will do. I hope I'm doing that in the right browser. Okay, so but that's just where we're going to, yeah, I think it's opening up in the wrong browser. So I'll just push that later. Okay, so so that's where we're going to round it up. So when we meet in our next class, we'll create a new branch and then we'll continue. So we're going to everything we do. So you also learn the concept of branching and gates, pushing codes, and getting all those stuff, right? Because you're going to apply that once you start working, as a team. And of course, you should also apply it, individually. Okay. So thank you very much for your time, and then we'll meet in our next class. That'll be on Monday. Okay, yeah, thank you. Have a wonderful day ahead.